to offer a motion that we accept the recommendation of our council.
Motion by Mr. DeHart that we accept the recommendation of our council.
Second.
Do I have a second, Mr. Ford? Any public comment? Mr. DeHart, Mr. Ford, any other board members? Any objections? None heard, so ordered.
What? Object.
Excuse me.
Object.
We have one objection by Mr. Wait, I remember his name, Hamner.
Okay.
And Mr. LaGarde. Any objections? Any further objections? No other persons? Last item on the agenda is a deviation from our agenda for tonight. Mr. Orgeron asked that he have a few minutes to address the transportation issues going on in our parish right now. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion that we deviate for Superintendent Arderon.
Okay, motion by Mr. Hamner, second by Mr. Wazan. Any public comment? Mr.
Hamner.
Hamner?
Yeah, not DeHart.
Aye.
Yeah.
Mrs. Wazan, any other board members? Any objections? The first to order. Mr. Orgeron.
We're good, we're on, Chris? All right.
Is your mic on, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all.
What are y'all deviating from?
From the normal agenda?
Yeah, so you're not deviating.
It's not a motion,
It's a report. Report on transportation.
So, but it's not on the agenda.
No.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a deviation. You have to add it to the agenda. And it has to be unanimous.
So we need another,
You need a motion to
Dr.
add.
Carmen, I move that we add the report on transportation by the superintendent to the agenda.
thank you. We have a second?
Unanimous second.
Mr. Ford, are you a second?
Yes.
Any public comment? Mr.
We have to call for unanimous second.
And, Mr. Ford, do you have any comments? Do we have a unanimous second? Any objections? None heard, so ordered. Mr. Ogeron.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. Okay, so, thank you, board, for allowing me to speak about transportation. So number one is tomorrow, we will have bus routes and bus stops available for parents, okay? It's going to be located on our main website page. We've got these scrolling graphics. It's gonna be the first graphic you see, bus routes, click there. We've also got another icon with bus routes, they can click there. As you know, we're in a transition to with the new website platform. So we've made available today school websites with only 4 bits of information on them. One of the 4 bits is gonna be bus routes for that school. So we can start by tomorrow morning accessing bus routes and bus stops. Keyword, bus stops. Now, for the first 3 days of school, I met with drivers today, and I met with transportation. We're gonna give 3 days of grace. If they're not at the stop, we're gonna pick them up wherever they're at. And as we pick them up, we're gonna say, okay, this is not the stop is here. Meet us here tomorrow. 3 days of grace. That way we get kids to school for 3 days, and tell them where the stops are gonna be. So the question that I'm sure people are asking is why this change? Why are we making these transitions in our transportation system? Well, throughout the entire year last year, I heard concerns from 4 groups. First group was teachers. Teachers were consistently concerned about the late arrivals of kids to their classrooms. They're missing breakfast, they're coming to me late, they're missing a big part of the instructional process in our schools. We heard that through ERC and elsewhere. So we listened. I heard it from principals. Every principal meeting we had practically was the #1 item on the agenda. Everyone. What are we gonna do about transportation? The kids are getting to our schools too late. That was number 2. The third group I heard it from was parents. Parents called. Their kids are getting to school late. They were concerned about lost instructional time. They were concerned about kids getting home late because they had after-school activities they were late for. They couldn't get them to those things because they were getting home at 5:30 or later, when they should have been home at 4:15. So we had a lot of those things going on. I heard from bus drivers. I surveyed bus drivers, said, can you tell me what are the issues that you're having in transportation? What are the solutions to the issues you're having? Top one, they said this: we need more drivers. They knew we need more drivers because they're the ones covering drivers. They said the number 2 thing is we need adjustments to our routes. The routes are not as efficient as they can be. They told us that in a survey. I have all the data here, and I shared that with them this morning. So what did we do? We realized we had a problem. I've heard it from 4 groups. When you think about it, next thing we did, so we started to gather data. When you think about it, after you gather the data, we tracked times. Is this legitimate? How late are they actually getting here? Administrators filled this in. All the orange, and you can't see, the orange are late times from a school. That was tracked. I can go down the list, everyone had late times. 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 28 minutes, so forth and so on, late to school. This was consistent. This wasn't isolated. When you think of late to school for 30 minutes, that's roughly 3 weeks of instructional time lost for the year. We're charged with educating kids to read in 1st and 2nd grade. There's a law you mentioned on grade level by 4th grade, or else the kid gets held back. And they're missing 30 minutes of instruction every day. Some of our schools that need kids there, most are not getting their kids to school. That's a problem. We identified a problem. So what are we gonna do about it? So you ask the question, why? Well, main reason we don't have drivers. So what can we do to fix that? Well, we did a few things. We made sure that everybody knew clearly we needed drivers. We had this big marketing campaign. We put yard signs, billboards. We asked those that were training, what would it make, or what difference would it make for you to come train with us if you want to be a driver? We asked that question. They said, well, I can't leave my job, go train for 2 or 3 weeks, and not have income coming in. So we said, we're going to give drivers who train with us $100 a day for the training, so we can bridge that gap. Did that get more drivers in? Yes, it did. It did. Not enough. Last year we had 28 vacant routes. 28 routes that had no driver. So to make that work, drivers had to double up. They'd make their run, they'd drop them off, then they'd go pick up the adjacent route. They're gonna be late to school. There's no way to get to school on time when you're doing double runs. 28 a day, not counting those that were absent. So they did a tremendous job, drivers did, trying to fill in those gaps. The second thing we did, when we were asking questions, gathering data, what's the problem? Can we identify the problem even more clearer? We asked expert consultants through First Student. First Student offered. Mr. Tony Vadrine says, if you need help with your routes, let me know. I need help with the routes. I'm letting you know right now. So he looked at our routes. The first thing they saw with our routes, we have too many stops. He said, there's no way you're going to get the kids on school if you're stopping at every single house. Even if you have drivers for every route, you're not going to get there on time. So we saw there was a problem. So we had a choice to make. Do we keep doing the same thing and letting kids come to school late, or do we try to make adjustments and quit using this as an excuse, which I've used in every meeting I could? People are tired of hearing it. We're short drivers. It's a national crisis. As true as that might be, we've got to do something different. We can't rely on that excuse and not try anything else. Everybody's in the same boat. We're short drivers, but what can we do differently to fix that problem? So last year we had 28 vacancies. Okay? We made some adjustments to routes with new software, and we reduced a lot of stops. We went from 6,000 stops last year to about 4,500 stops this year. If you think about it, every stop is stop and start, that's time. It's time. If I pick up one kid, or 5 kids, that's obviously, I mean, it makes clear sense that you're going to save time. So that's what we're doing. We're making community stops, which is nothing new. That's happened all over the country, all over the state. It's how I caught a bus. You walk to a bus stop, that's a community stop. This idea that we stop at every house is convenient, and we're used to that, and it's going to be a tough adjustment, but if we keep doing it, kids are going to get to school late. So with the adjustments we made, listen to this one, it's pretty interesting. So I'm addressing the why we've made the changes. We've gone from 28 vacant routes to right now, starting school, we'll have 17 vacant routes. So we've saved, and we've got 8 people in training, so 17 minus 8 is gonna be 9. 9 vacant routes. So we went from 28 vacant routes to 9. Now let me tell you this. When we made the routes, this software company, we included almost every kid in the school because we don't know if they're a car rider or a bus rider. So we have room within those 9 vacant routes to reduce that even more. We could probably shave off another 7 vacancies and almost get to 0 vacancies. That's a plus. That's a big plus. Our plan, the plan that we have, I'll get into the plan. We communicated the plan back in March. I shared that with you in March. I did a video to parents. It's still on the website right now under the superintendent page. If any parents want to see what the plan is, you can go to that page and you can see in Word, and you can listen to the video again if you'd like to do that. I kind of go through the whole rationale and the exact plan. The plan consists of 4 things that we're doing, 4 pieces. Number 1, we have community stops. We have a designated amount of distance for elementary, middle school, high school. That's how far the stops are apart. Transportation's done an excellent job. They've looked at those distances, and if any of these are along major highways or areas that you've got to cross a highway, it's not gonna be a stop. It's gonna be safe spots, safe walking distance to that bus stop. 200 yards is 1/10 of a mile. That's less than most districts in Louisiana are making kids walk to a bus stop. It's 1/10 of a mile. That's what we're doing for elementary. We're doing 400 yards, which is a little over 2/10 of a mile for middle school, and 600 yards for high school, which is about 3/10 and some change. That's what they're walking. Other districts next door, they're walking half a mile, and that's consistent. You're gonna walk all the way up a street, a half mile. Yes, sir.
When you say other districts next door, are we talking?
Lafourche in particular, yes,
So
sir.
they're walking how far?
Half mile.
Half
It's
a
really
mile?
6/10 is what we go by, but
Right.
it's half a mile in
Okay.
many situations. So we're less than that, even with our high school kids.
And this is to get to a bus stop, a
Yes, sir.
community bus stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So that's number 1, community bus stops. Number 2, we did zones around the school that are no service zones. And we started at a mile, okay? That's law. 1 mile, you don't have to pick up within that 1 mile. That's a walking zone or a no service zone. Doesn't mean necessarily walk, it means somebody's got to bring you to school. We've taken that zone and we've shrunk it. We've shrank it. I'm not sure what's the proper verb.
I think it's shrinking.
So for Lisa Park, Broadmoor, Oakshire, Legion, Mulberry-Berg, Honduras, that 1 mile has been reduced to a 1/4 mile because it's more fitting. It fits better for those communities. Now the 1/4 mile, it's not a perfect ring. That mile, that 1/4 mile it's irregularly shaped around certain streets, around certain intersections, so that we make it safe for that kid to get to school within that zone. Okay? What that does by making that ring, it frees up drivers that are filling in those vacant routes. If we pick up every kid, we can't fill the void in those vacant routes. It's not gonna happen. We've tried it. It doesn't happen. Yes, sir.
So the kids that live within, and I'm asking lots of questions because I'm getting lots of questions. The kids that live within this 1/4 mile zone, you're saying that they will not be picked up, they will not have a bus route. They have to find a way to school.
Walk or find the ride. Yes, sir.
Walk or find a ride.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If-
What we could offer community members, or as far as suggestions, maybe we could offer like, parents or neighbors creating shared ride
Yes, sir.
sharing
Yes, sir.
programs, or-
Yes, sir. You know what else? That's a great idea. Another thing that happened, there's nothing saying you can't go from your house to a bus stop right here that might be right outside the 1/4 mile. That's a possibility. We're not saying, oh, no, you can't. If that works or it fits, and I don't know that, but they'll know that eventually. They'll see the routes and where the stops are. They can do that. Does that help? Like that, so that was number 2, the circumference around the school.
Some of the questions
gonna have to bring them.
I don't know.
Or they could walk from a
That's when
no-service
grandma comes
zone to a service
I hate
zone.
to say that, but it's, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
That sounds
I know that's
good,
where this grandma's coming in.
but that all of them plans sound good, but first we taking the human error and safety, because I know I got some, first, we kinda sell some of the Eleanor stuff, but you know, the neighborhood by Eleanor is right there, but you got kids gonna walk a mile, but we put 2 buses. But then I had some parents call me, they live across the street from Honduras, but that's a major highway.
That one's gonna, that's, no, we accounted for that one, Ms. LaGuardia. That
Okay.
one's gonna be one of those that's kind of carved out, we talked specifically. And I'm just saying I'm not making any decision, they're just kind of sharing this information with me. But I recall that one in particular, because of that serious traffic street, the zone is kind of inside that. Or that one's gonna be picked up by a bus.
I think we
So-
should look at, I think, you know, that the best thing, the models are good, but I think we should have people, boots on the ground when the buses start rolling, to actually see what's going on. You know,
Okay.
I would like to have an accurate picture. You know, you're gonna have parents, of course, it's always 2 sides.
Yes, sir.
You know, the parent, but I wanna get an accurate picture of what's going
That's a
on.
good idea.
You know, to actually know what's going on. I don't want the bus driver gonna have one side, the parent gonna have one side, you know, and, but my first thing is safety. You know, I want them kids to be safe, and we getting a lot of complaints, and, you know, I wanna actually see, you know, what's going on with that, you know, if it's, highway, sidewalks, you know, if you got a group of kids walking to school, there's a safety issue, you know, 5 or 6 kids in a group, people gonna think that's a gang. You know, I just wanna see the safety issues of
Okay.
it, what goes on, as, it's a good idea to save, you know, but I need the human factor, the
Okay.
safety of our kids getting to school, and you know, personally, you know, they could still be late. You know, walking to school, they could say, you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just wanna make sure it's a safe issue, you know, safe.
Well, we're talking about stops. Are you done, Mr. Upley? Pre-K and kindergarten, could you mention what's happening with them?
They're gonna get picked up everywhere.
They're gonna get picked up from their homes, pre-K and kindergarten.
Yes, yes.
So Superintendent Arndro, what I'm kind of interpreting everything you say, that you set up a plan, you came up with a plan, you let the bus drivers and the transportation department look at it, y'all worked out some kinks in it already.
Yes, sir.
And if I could just kind of second guess, there may be other kinks you're gonna discover along the way.
Definitely, yes, sir.
That you will adjust,
Yes, sir.
you know, in the first couple of weeks of school.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think you did a marvelous job with it. I know you've done some tweaking already, like
Yes, sir.
in the Broadmoor area, in the Bayou Black area. And, those were things you discovered.
And we're gonna keep doing, like you said, sir, we'll keep tweaking as we go to address some of this
What we need
large
to do then
kind of
is
issues.
encourage our parents, you know, to call it in, let them know, you know,
Yes, yes.
let y'all know if, you know, unique situations that, you know, we may not know about.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Sounds reasonable.
Ms. Benmar?
I think it's a necessary thing. I mean, this loss of instructional time is unacceptable. And this has really happened, I would say, since the hurricane,
Since the
really.
hurricane.
I mean, we didn't have these kind of transportation
no.
issues before. A couple of things. Anytime that you pull back a service that you would normally have, you're gonna have some pushback from parents. I mean, and we just have to continue to tell them the importance of this instructional time. And this is the only way that we can resolve this with the number of bus drivers we have to do this. And I will tell you that every day I take the couplet to and back from Nichols from my house. And so those buses are along the highway and it stops, like, we got a whole bunch of commuters, like behind the buses, stopping every car length almost, to the next stop. And there's been a lot of near misses of accidents because people are sick of waiting behind the bus, and you see them taking off as soon as the bus starts again. They're like speeding up, trying to get ahead of the bus, to not have to stop anymore.
Yes.
So it's a good thing for that issue too, to reduce the number of stops. I don't know if that was your plan, is not to stop on those highways like that.
That's a piece of it, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I see where it needs to be done. The only other thing is these people that are accustomed to the stops that are right now, is on the website, are you showing last year's stops and what this year's stop would be?
Last year's stop was their house. No, like, there was no, like, stop on.
So there was no
1371.
community stops at all last year?
Very few, very few.
Oh my
Been
God.
like that for years.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
That's part of
That's
it.
the
Big
problem. Yeah, major problem.
If I can add a couple of things, so the third thing we're doing on the east side, and this is a concern, it's a concern we discussed thoroughly, and didn't casually dismiss any concerns of parents with this at all. But we're gonna we're gonna do 2 runs on the east side. See, we do 3, we've been doing 3 runs, first, second, third run. On the east side, we're gonna combine the middle school kids with the high school kids. Okay, so that's a concern, right? So you think about it, so it's a concern because it's new and something we haven't done. You ask in other districts across Louisiana that are K-12 districts or K-12 schools, they all ride the bus together, K through 12. That's not uncommon. So what we're gonna do to kind of help that situation, we're gonna put, Mrs. DeHart was mentioning earlier about the cameras, we're gonna put live cameras on the bus, so principals and anybody at the school level can watch live and record instantly any incidents that might happen, so we can just kind of control and manage what's happening on a bus. That's gonna help us tremendously. We're gonna have designated seating arrangements where the middle school kids are in the front, high school kids are in the back. So what that's gonna do, it's gonna prevent a driver from having to go all the way down to Chauvin twice. I'm gonna go to Chauvin, I'm gonna pick up LaCash's kids and South Terrebonne kids of the same neighborhood, and we're gonna make one run back to the same area. And then we're gonna do the same thing for Oak Lawn and Ellender kids, and Grand Caillou Middle and Ellender kids. It's really no different than we do Homer Junior High and Terrebonne High, except we're adding 5th and 6th grade. That's the difference. But other than that, it's the same premise as Evergreen, Bourgeois, and Homer Junior High and Terrebonne. So we're doing that to kind of, and the premise or the idea behind that is to give a longer amount of time between the first and second run. We're gonna have an hour between. So we feel that once you drop off the first run, you have a whole hour to get that second batch of kids to their school in time. It's not saving us a whole lot on drivers, but time is saving us. So we're pretty good about that. The fourth thing we're doing, we had a lot of buses picking up parochial and private school kids, which is, we do that. They were getting the same service our kids were. We were picking up at their location. Well, we were able to save 3 buses just by making community stops for the parochial kids. So we're gonna pick them up in their neighborhood at one spot, not go traipsing through every neighborhood. We're gonna go one stop here, one stop here. It's gonna save the drivers time, takes less drivers when there's less time. So that's the plan in a nutshell. It's much more detailed on the website, and that's the rationale. I understand this. It's gonna be rough for about a week or maybe more. It's gonna get better. It will get better. And Mr. Lagarde and other board members that have comments about tweaking, we're gonna look at, I say as I get them, I present them to Ms. Obear and Ms. Melissa Sanders and Melissa Verrett. They've been doing a great job. Ms. Tamika, massaging these routes and hand drawing some lines after the company gave it to us digitally.
What was the name of that company again? You said that you used to hire the,
First Student.
that's, okay.
So First Student is the company that we lease the buses from, but they specialize in transportation.
Okay.
So they've helped us with our routes, and We even looked at, just so you know, we've explored getting drivers from First Student as well. He's got none locally. We'd have to get them from California, pay their flight, pay their hotels, and pay them an exorbitant amount of money
Oh,
that they'd be making more than school teachers. So we're not at that point
Yeah.
yet. So we're gonna see if we can do other things to kind of get our drivers together. That's just not where we're at right now.
The, middle school and the high schools on the east side, what distance are we using for them?
Same thing.
400 or 600? Since they're on the same bus?
Four.
The 4, that's what I thought.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we know the number? Oh, I'm sorry.
The east side is being piloted, this program. Are we looking at doing this on the west side if it works well?
Maybe. It might not lend itself to working on the west side. It's just so much larger. And we already have the junior highs connected to the high schools. See, it works on the east side because they were like their own separate route, the middle schools, and we had more of them. You know, you had Oaklawn, the Montague, LaCache, Grand County, we had 4, we only had 2 on this side. So those 4 had like their own little slot with a few other elementaries.
But the west side still has 3 routes, is that correct?
We
Or-
still have 3. The only thing we did on the west side, we put them at a very consistent time, so that all first routes at the same time, all second routes, and all third routes at the same time. You know, we had some weird times, like we had about 12 different times on the west side.
So is junior high considered the high school buses or the middle school buses? Junior high, HJH, Evergreen.
They're gonna be on the high school buses.
They're gonna be the high school
Yes,
buses.
sir.
Yeah. So the 5 through 8 school, well, no, we don't have any on this side.
Not on this side, just the east
Y'all are all-
side, just the east sides of 5.
They're all on the east side of 444.
It's been long.
Do we know the number of bus riders that we have?
No.
Do we
And
know
here-
what,
and
what
it's
what
a-
it was last year?
I don't know that. We could find.
Yeah.
So here's a big factor in this whole puzzle is the schools identifying who the car riders are, who the walkers are versus the bus riders. And putting that into our program called J Campus. J Campus is gonna be the program that feeds it to the bus routing system. Then we'll have a very definitive number and we can start weeding out some of those kids that don't ride and make our routes even tighter.
Yeah,
That's where we're gonna see. We don't know that yet, so we scheduled big. If you follow what I'm
Yeah,
saying, like we
yeah.
scheduled all kids as riders when
yeah.
many of them won't ride, so we can have much smaller loads, so we can maybe combine loads and save more drivers.
Especially in high
Well,
school.
the other thing I
Yes,
thought of
especially the high school.
is if with these changes, you may have some dropping out as bus riders and the parents will start bringing them because they won't like the
That can happen,
change.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why I'd like to know, where the numbers are so that we can see what's happening
Yes,
as
ma'am.
we make the changes.
And with that said, so our message to the schools is very clear. You're asking us to help. We need very accurate information in JCAM so we can make it as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
So some of that was kind of falling through the cracks. We were missing some opportunities to do that and do it clearly, so we've got to get that real tight. Yes, sir.
Any other board
Sorry.
members?
Oh, I have,
Mr. Dior?
I'm sorry, I've been very, very quiet because I got a lot of questions and concerns, and I'd like to share them with y'all. I am not no expert at transportation by far, but the first element that I am very concerned about, I don't care what community you live in, I don't care what school it is, it's right now, whenever the distance is encouraged to be further. I know for years, recreations and other people get information about sex offenders, child molesters. That's the phone calls I'm getting right now in certain communities, parish-wide, not just in my district. The most important factor I see that I think has not been implemented in this information, that is really gonna help us come up, there's no perfect plan to do this. Years ago, we staggered because of trying to get to school on time and having structure. That's why we started staggering years and years and years ago. But what I'm getting at is that right now, I can name you almost every school in the parish that has an abundant amount of car riders in the morning and some in the afternoon. And it's not it's about the parents that work. They're gonna drop their children off before and after school care and stuff like that. I've had many meetings with the sheriff as a board member at his request to say, what can we do to ensure safety around, all these car riders? And I'm not gonna name the school, but they've got one school that parents get there early so they can drop off their children and go to work. And the kids are out of the car playing football in the street. Somebody's gonna end up getting hurt right outside the school. Now that's happening, and I got phone calls on that. But what I'm saying to you right now, knowing how many people are driving their kids to school, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, it don't make any difference. Those working parents, because of the cost of living, have to do certain things. That's one thing. We know in this school system today, whenever we open school, how many teachers are needed at each school, what PT ratio, people moving because of the hurricane. Population has dropped in many schools or moved, and where some might have increased. I don't know all of those numbers, but all I'm saying, that's numbers that you can tell whether a community needs, how many buses and how many students ride. I get called before this situation even got to this point about, in some subdivisions, they only have 15 and 16 kids on a school bus. That's something we, the school system, needs to look into and clarify and fix and adjust routes. That's right. Okay, so what I'm saying to you, there's many elements that no matter the help from first student or our staff, putting all our heads together to try and come up with a solution. What I learned first 4 years on this school board, no matter who's transportation supervisor, no matter how many school children we had, we used to have 20,000 kids, and I'm telling you right now, distance and time dictate how you're gonna get to school on time to have instructional time. And all I'm saying is that I'm with all of y'all tonight to try and say we gotta stop the bleeding about losing instructional time. We're about ready to collapse because that's happened. But guess what? We, in years past, and I'm not trying to be long-winded, in years past, many schools have changed grade configuration, which helped transportation. And I'm not trying to say that's the answer, because I don't know that. But whenever you have population count, driver count, how many people parents are bringing their kids to school, that's less kids. I don't care how many kids you have enrolled in child welfare and attendance. We don't know if they're riding a bus or their parents is bringing them. That right there, I think Mr. Angeron will help, and maybe you already know some of that information, but all I'm saying to you that year after year, no matter if we had a hurricane or not, people move. New subdivisions have developed. I remember, and I'm just using a very brief example, Marbury one summer, we had to go to the parish council, get permits to get 13 portables added to Marbury because all of the population had increased because all of those apartments opened up on that end of town. Many subdivisions did the same thing on the east side. Okay, I'm just saying subdivisions grow. And all I'm trying to say to you that there are some elements, in my opinion, that can still be implemented and looked at. And I'm telling you right now, not just a week or two. The phones will ring off the wall if they don't have enough people in transportation to answer the phones. Our switchboard person over here is gonna be overwhelmed with calls that are necessary because parents don't know. And Mr. Angeron, no disrespect, you're trying to do everything you can, so it's not criticizing the process. All I'm saying to you that every time we had any type of issue on transportation, we had to work on it to where parents knew before this close to school opening. And it's not his fault, not staff's fault, just that the mechanism is, we need to know, like Ms. Benoit said, we need to know how many students are really riding the bus. Some areas, it's light on buses. We used to have 55 passenger buses, now we got 65 passenger buses, air conditioned too. But it's not about that, it's just about how many buses we are riding that are half full or half empty, whatever way you want to put it. So all of these elements, we got a lot of homework to do, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to implement and suggest things that we, not say we erred, we may have didn't look far enough, and it's elements that could drive this thing, because I'll tell you what, every industry in Terrebonne Parish right now is shorthanded. And all I'm saying to you that we're short of bus drivers, to me, that's what I focus on, number one. We're short employees. We got the buses, but we're short employees, and they're stopping, from door to door, stopping. My concern is, whenever it rains, we have a policy that we're gonna pick up those kids at their house. So everything we're trying to do, I'm not saying we have to undo, but whenever it's raining, look, we're in the South of Louisiana. If we was up where it was dry all the time, I would say that's not one problem we have. But sooner or later, that is gonna be addressed, no matter if they're walking to school.
I think money's 40% too.
You see what I'm trying to say to you is that it's not that we didn't plan or we didn't organize things, but guess what? Everything Mr. Armstrong suggested that we're trying to do, and the staff worked with him, first student helpers, all of that sounds good as long as it's not raining. And all of us up here know, whenever it's gonna rain, all of that goes in the garbage can for that day or that afternoon, because we're not gonna have our kids with their school supplies, with their textbooks, getting soaking back to get on that bus. And look, we don't have shelters and stuff like that. All of them getting that. And another thing too, Mr. Armstrong stated about, hiring people and paying them a salary to get trained. Years ago, we tried to get legislation to make a CDL, a different CDL, to where whenever we train them, there'd be bus drivers. We train people, and I don't know the numbers, but we train people that never did work a day for us, and we pay them now to get trained. There's no guarantee they're gonna stay and work for us, or they get more pay. And I'm gonna use the example in the parish. Those buses that the parish own that bring people around, it's a good service to our community. But guess what? Almost all of those bus drivers that I know from years past, now may not still be there today, but we trained them to drive our buses, but they got paid more to go somewhere else. So I'm not here implementing a raise or anything like that, but every time you try something and it don't work, you can't give up. And that's one thing I'm gonna tell you, I'm not giving up, because we have to do something better. And I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and offer any knowledge I know or suggestions I know to Mr. Angeron and his staff to where we look at it. But I'm telling you, the numbers are crucial. If you can help, and you understand this better than I do, anybody that's been in the school system as educators, the PT ratio of a classroom is not just a number. It's about how many people's coming in that grade level. It determines how many teachers you have for that grade level and how many teachers you need for the grade level. So all I'm saying to you is that grade levels change and numbers change. That's crucial information that I think we are missing or we don't have complete to where we can maybe help the situation even better. So saying all of that, I know I covered a lot of territory, but I've been thinking about this ever since I heard about the distance. And it's not about just overreacting how far the distance is. It's just that if it was a bulletproof situation to where it never rained, I would be more lenient to say, hey, that can work. But whenever it rains, we gotta go back to square one. And square one is losing instruction time. I don't wanna do that. And one of the schools right here that had ninth grade next door, they were losing instruction every day. That's whether it rained or not, it didn't make no difference, because they had to go there. So I'm glad Terrebonne High School is able to house all of these students this year. It's not about a portable building, but they were walking across and there was not enough time to get from one place to another. And that's not our fault, it's just population shift and stuff like that. So again, I'm trying to say to you that over all the knowledge and the comments that I've made, I've been very quiet, but I can't be quiet anymore. So thank y'all for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Duhart. I just wanted to interject one thing I learned yesterday. I was one day old. The one day I've learned that. I spoke to a driver that has been with our district for quite some time. And she says, well, we're just going back to the way it was. She said, we used to stop every 7th house for elementary kids and every 14th house for the older kids. And over time, that has gradually been whittled away.
And it's
Says
raining
because
back
she
then
drove,
too,
she
right?
remembers when we drove, and you know, and it brings my mind back to when I was, a student, and I remember walking over 3 or 4 houses to get to my bus stop, you know, and I was on Pontchamp, and I remember that. The bus didn't stop at every house, all the kids that I played with, in the afternoon, we caught the bus together on the little bridge going to Lafourche Parish on the side of the bayou there, but it was every 7th and every 14th house. So we're actually going back to what we, maybe somewhere close to where we used to be. And I think that was in the 90s that was happening, as she told me.
But houses that have big lots, not like in a subdivision or closer together. So what I'm saying, and I'm just using an example Mr. Hamner said, like by Black. It's not that they have a mile in between each house. But if you look at those highways, I'm talking about the lots are bigger. Whenever you're looking at subdivisions, your lots are smaller and they're closer together. So, you know, that's two different elements.
But this driver drove on the bayou, so the houses were closer together. It wasn't like it was, you know, in the northern part of the parish. Any other board members?
Motion to adjourn.
Did you wanna say something?
I hadn't had supper
Any-
yet, my
any-
diabetes is acting
I
up.
have got a motion to adjourn in a second. Any public comment? Clyde, do you have anything to say?
No, ma'am. Let's
Mr.
go to the
Wozniak?
house.
Any objections? None heard, so ordered.